Well, good morning, everybody. It's Monday morning, and I'm about to head to the office. But before I did, I thought I would kind of go over the today's Bible study with you. It's got a lot of scriptures. He brings a ton of scriptures into it today. He's trying to make a case for, as he talks about in the title of the lesson, Paul matures as a disciple. And I guess at first I took offense at it because I always saw Paul as different than Peter and James and John. Peter, when we first see him, he's stumbling all over the place and making all kinds of mistakes. And even Jesus calls him Satan on one occasion. Get thee behind me, Satan. And James and John, he calls them sons of thunder because they're wanting to strike somebody or a whole city of people down with fire from heaven. So we get to see in most of the apostles, at least the ones we have insight into, that they are maturing as disciples as they go along. And by the time we get to the book of Acts, they're still maturing, but they have matured quite somewhat. Even in Acts, we still see Peter making faux pas from time to time, two of which I can think of, but that's not my point today. But when we come to the Apostle Paul, I always kind of see him as different, that he just starts out on the straight and narrow, starts out in way ahead of the game than anybody else, and he doesn't make any mistake. But really, that's not true. Paul did make mistakes along the way, and just like with David and Abraham and Moses, God didn't cover up those mistakes. He revealed them to us and expected us, as we talked about in yesterday's lesson, to read the scriptures, be filled with the knowledge of God's will, with wisdom and spiritual understanding. And sometimes we have to apply that spiritual understanding to see that, oh, that was not what God wanted us to do, or what God wanted Peter or Paul or James or whoever to do. And we need to learn from that mistake. And the author in the film and in the book, the workbook, he sort of gives us that impression with the Apostle Paul. And so he gives us a boatload of scriptures to give us that idea. He doesn't really come out and declare that this is that or this is that. He kind of insinuates and says, give us something to think about. And I like that he did that. When I first started the lesson, I didn't like that he did that, because I didn't want to think that way about Paul. But as I look at the scriptures in the context that he presents them, I don't agree with every situation that he brings up as being a maturing event in the life of the Apostle Paul, but some of them obviously are. And he, I guess the main point that he's trying to get is that Paul started out ministering or missionarying in this way, but by the time we see him several years later, he's doing it in a different way. He first goes in very excited, very passionate, very, I'm going to teach you the truth no matter how it falls on you type of thing, or how it comes back on me type of thing. And then by the end of his career, he hasn't lost that zeal, he hasn't lost that passion, but he's found a different way to apply it, different way to use it. And instead of going here, there, and staying for short jaunts, run out of town, he goes to a place, stays there for a year and a half, 3 years, or whatever, and mentors people in the congregations that he established. Is that exactly how it took place? Is that the reason that it took place in that way? I don't know. Was the Holy Spirit guiding him in doing it that way so that he can establish quick churches and then come back to them later and strengthen them? That's how I always saw it. And it may be something to think about, that Paul was just learning as he goes, following the guidance of the Spirit, and learning as he goes how to do better. I know that's happened in my life. When I was a young pup preacher, I felt like I could preach someone into heaven from the pulpit. And really, that's not the purpose of the pulpit. We had a lady from a particular denomination in one of the second church I ever preached at, first full-time work that I had. And she was of a particular denomination. She was married to a member of the church who wasn't giving her the kind of influence that she needed to become a member of the church, but she was always in attendance at the assembly, sometimes when he wasn't. And I made it my goal to convert her from the pulpit. Well, that wasn't going to happen. I was only making her angry, making her more obstinate. Obstinate's not the right word, but more puts up her defenses type situation. And I never really made any inroads with her. Years later, she was baptized into Christ, and maybe, I don't know what circumstances were there, but maybe someone with more wisdom in approach was able to help her. And so I see that in my youth, my past, and how I hopefully have matured, still have some to go. And that's really what this lesson is trying to point out, that Paul was going through that process. And I'm not saying that's the way it was. I'm just saying that he presents that idea, and it's something to think about. So I would encourage you to go ahead and read the scriptures that he brings up. Some of them I struggled to figure out exactly what point he was trying to make by bringing up that particular scriptures, and you may struggle with it. Well, don't fight over it a lot. Don't dwell on it a whole lot trying to figure it out. But unless you just have a desire or time to do so, but just see that he's trying to help you see present an idea that Paul wasn't sinning in his youth as a preacher. He just wasn't using maybe the best approach in how he did things. And I know that's true in my life. I'm not comparing myself to the Apostle Paul in any way, but I know that's true in my life. That when I was young, I was energetic and I was full of fire and full of zeal. And unfortunately, my way was the only right way, and it wasn't. But maybe I'm not the only one who suffers from that plague. But anyway, I just want to leave that with you today. I'm not going to go through all those scriptures. I'll let you do that by yourself if you like. But I think that's the point. And at the end, he talks to us about. Let me pull it up real quick. How we might consider there at the reflections. Write down the evidence that you see of Paul's passion for his commands to share the gospel as Jesus commanded him to do. Did Paul follow Jesus more or less intensely before or after Corinth? That's not really what I was looking for. Everything. Paul, pray about how you could become like Paul, a disciple who was intent on walking as Jesus walked, and had an intense desire to share Jesus and his willingness to follow God's leading. And that's where we need to be. Learn from our mistakes, learn from our immaturity, and move on. But take advantage of the best advantage of every opportunity you have to present the gospel of Jesus Christ to someone. And it doesn't mean, I want to impress this upon you, that it doesn't mean you have to have a Bible in your hand at all times and be quoting passages or scriptures to people all the time. Show them the way by the way you live. And when questions come up, and they will, take that opportunity to present the gospel. Have a good evening.